On Sunday the 28th of May, HBO aired the final episodes of two of its best shows back-to-back, Succession and Barry. As much as I loved the Succession finale, and it felt like an appropriately bitter and downbeat ending to the series, it didn't bowl me over like the Barry finale did. It's a shame that the Barry finale had to play second fiddle to the Succession finale, because the Barry finale deserved its own fanfare. The final episode of Barry was just as intense and offbeat and deeply profound and curiously ambiguous as fans have come to expect. This series has been full of surprises, and the finale is no different, but Barry never has a shocking twist just for the sake of it. That's the genius of Bill Hader's vision. He has a way of making every plot turn feel completely unexpected, but also inevitable. Whatever happens in Barry is not only something you didn't expect to happen, it's what had to happen, dramatically or thematically or just because it makes sense. Barry had to die in the finale. There was no other way to end a show that has given him every opportunity to be the hero and allowed him to squander it every single time. But I don't think anyone expected him to be killed by Gene Cousineau. The funny thing is, Barry was just about to do the right thing. He was talked down by Gene's agent, of all people, and he finally decided he should turn himself in and face the music. But it was too little too late, and Gene came in with a gun and shot him dead. Hader nailed the hilarious delivery of Barry's surprise when he looks up to see which one of his many enemies finally killed him, and sees that it's Gene.
Oh, wow.
Gene's ending is the most tragic. His worst crime is that he wanted to be played by Danielle Greaves, and he ends up spending the rest of his life in prison for it. As heartbroken as I was for Gene, there is a delicious irony in his dark fate. All Gene ever wanted was fame, and he ended up with infamy. Everyone knows his name and he'll be remembered for years after he's gone, but not because he's a great actor. He'll be remembered because as far as the world is concerned, he's a murderer. It was an interesting way to close the show's message about the cycle of violence. Gene was perhaps the most affected by Barry's actions and the least deserving, so it seems like poetic justice for him to be the one who killed Barry. But rather than being a satisfying revenge, it just lands him in prison for the rest of his life. At every turn, this show has told its audience that violence can have no positive outcome, and the finale drives the last nail into the coffin, so to speak. Besides Barry, NoHo Hank is the only other main character who ends up dead, and again that felt like a fitting conclusion for this character. Until 4 episodes ago, Hank was by far the most lovable character on the show. But ever since he had Cristobal killed, Hank has been a broken man. He started his own criminal empire as a way of honoring Cristobal's memory. His company name is their ship name, the mission statement is a tribute to Cristobal, and there's a big bronze statue of Cristobal in the lobby. But it was never enough. No matter how much memorializing he did, Hank could never forgive himself. Fuches realized he struck a nerve whenever he brought up Cristobal. He recognized his own guilt in Hank, and when he touched that nerve one last time, Hank angrily ordered his men to open fire, leading to the shootout that would ultimately kill him. The haunting final image of Hank reaching out to Cristobal's statue perfectly symbolizes Hank achieving peace in death, absolving himself of his sins and joining Cristobal in the hereafter. Of all the characters to get a redemption, I didn't imagine Fuches would be the one to be redeemed. For most of the series, Fuches has been singularly focused on killing Barry. He had not one, but 2 chances to give up his criminal life and settle down on a farm with a beautiful woman. And both times he gave it up because he couldn't let go of his grudge against Barry. But when he found out Barry had a son, Fuches had a change of heart and spied a second chance. Fuches really fucked up as Barry's father figure and turned him into a killing machine. He wants to give Barry the opportunity to be the father that he never was. So when the bullets start flying, Fuches dives on John to protect him, guides him out of the building with his eyes covered, and returns him to his dad. I loved the final unspoken moments between Barry and Fuches. It reminded me of Walt and Jesse's last encounter in the Breaking Bad finale. I'm really happy with where Sally ended up. I've never understood the hate for this character. She has some issues with narcissism.
You entitled fucking God! You entitled fucking God!
But she's always been the character with the most integrity, and her ending reflects that. Sally didn't have to sell out and start a podcast or a reality show where she exploits her relationship with Barry for entertainment. She just moved on. She managed to get over Barry and the trauma of killing a man in self-defense, and now she gets to do what she loves as a high school theater director. She still craves external validation, but she has a much better life. She has a much healthier and more functional relationship with John, and after marrying an abuser and going on the lam with a murderer, she's staying away from relationships for good.
Hey, you want to go get a drink or maybe a cup of coffee or something?
No.
Sally took some really dark turns throughout season 4, and I feared she was losing her mind, so I'm really glad she was able to come out the other side and pull her life back together. Hader once again proves he's a brilliant director with this finale. It's a shame that Barry is over, but now Hader is free to direct a movie, and it's going to be spectacular. There are so many great directorial choices in this finale episode. It has some unforgettable shots, like the slow dolly back from Hank holding onto Cristobal's statue in his dying moments, as well as masterful touches like the scene transition from Jean framed with Barry's corpse like they're on a stage, juxtaposed with the applause from Sally's theater audience years later. The shootout was also ingeniously shot. A typical action director would bring a lot of flash and frills to this scene, but Hader barely moves the camera as everyone shoots each other and falls to the floor. The shootout itself is over in seconds, and what lingers for a few excruciating minutes afterwards is the shock as Sally cries out for John and a fallen gunman tries to ask his dead friend for help. The sequence captures the terror of a firefight much more effectively than the average action set piece. I think some fans, myself included, were expecting Barry to go full John Wick and massacre his way through Hank's office building. But that ultimately wouldn't have served the story. We already saw the bleak consequences of a Barry massacre way back in season 2. Instead, before Barry even gets there, all the people he's coming to kill have killed each other, and Fuches has redeemed himself. Critics have been divided on the final scene, but I thought it was a really clever way for the series to comment on itself. The Mask Collector is essentially what some mainstream audiences wished Barry would have been, and it points out exactly what's wrong with that kind of mindless entertainment. It relies on cliches, it glosses over all the complexity, and it turns violence into a spectacle. After sitting through this absurdly falsified and oversimplified version of the story, it really stings to see that Jean is serving a life sentence in prison while Barry has been buried at Arlington with full honors. The final shot shows that even in death, Barry got what he wanted. His son views him as a hero. It brings the series back around to the biting showbiz satire that defined its early episodes. From the moment Barry wandered into an acting class to the moment his son watched his fictionalized biopic, Barry was a story about the power of Hollywood bullshit.
I thought soldiers knew how to take orders.
Sometimes being a good soldier means not taking orders.
Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked the video. Remember to like and subscribe and click on the little bell. And also seize the day and call your mom and be kind to yourself.